Investment banking and private equity are the two domains which people find it very difficult to enter into. In India, mostly people after MBA colleges, and that too after good MBA colleges, target entering such domains. But in the current scenario, things have improved. People, even with qualifications like CA, CFA, or right after undergraduation from good undergraduate colleges, try entering into such domain, investment banking especially. However, this was definitely not the case back in 2017. This is when I was going through the profile of Sanket Jaibhaye, I found it extremely inspirational and motivational. He got into investment banking as his first job right in 2017 after his undergraduation from Sriram College. Getting into IB must have not been easy, and today he currently works in CVC Capital Partners. Stay tuned till the end of the conversation to find out his journey and know how he managed to get his first job in investment banking and then enter into the investing space. Thank you. Sanket, आपका first job after college was in a boutique investment banking firm, and that was back in 2017.
Yes.
A time when investment banking firms would not even come to our college for placements. Then secondly, we were not even aware कि ये सारे roles होते हैं.
Yes.
तो I want to know कि आपका कैसा journey था. One कि आपको कैसे पता चला आपको investment banking interesting लगा. Second, and आपने कैसे apply किया आपको मिल गया वो job. I'm sure it must not have been easy. So I would want to know.
So it was a very funny story. It was only in like the second half of my second year. I started realizing that I would want to long-term pursue investing.
Okay.
And this was after like spending a lot of time reading a lot of books, content, a lot of things went through that decision. But basically the point was that it was right at the point when you're supposed to appear for your interviews for your third year placements, right, which happens in the first thing. So a few companies did appear recruiting for investment banking jobs, but the reality is that there were quite a few well-qualified candidates already for these roles. But I really wanted to do it.
The competition was very stiff.
Yeah, competition with my job was very stiff. I would say I was lucky to have like really, really smart people as my batchmates, right? And effectively, but I still wanted to do it. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll try to figure something. I have a whole year. And in this year, I will try to like really do something and just get in somewhere. So I basically just decided, let me just first let's reach out to anybody and everybody who is doing this already. Let's make a list of investment banks which do decent business. And so I just basically blanket reached out to some 400 people, to be honest.
400, 500. Insane number.
Yeah. So that was the only option, to be honest.
What was the conversion rate?
It's pretty low, actually. At that time, it was very low. LinkedIn was new, to be honest, right? It's becoming more mainstream right now. Okay, I'm also talking like a grandpa. I'm not that old. This is still 2016, 2017, right? Conversion rates were low. But the good part was that some of the folks really wanted to, at that time, that was just the beginning of really creating a graduate plus in these firms. So I reached out to few. Yeah, a few replied. I think Veda Corporate Advisors, the fund, the firm that I ended up joining, showed a lot of interest. Their only concern was that the job was based in Chennai. So they were like, you're studying in Delhi. Do you really want to come down to Chennai and work? And I said, look, I really want to do investment banking, and you're offering me an opportunity to work with you directly in a front office role in Chennai, and I see that you do really good business. I would take it. I would take it. So I basically moved from Delhi to Chennai.
That's amazing. So I think before I would move to the next question, I just wanted to make it clear. He read Intelligent Investor in college, which many people even after college or even few years on the corporate career are scared to read. So how was your first experience and how did that shape up into your subsequent jobs and a key takeaway from your first experience?
Yeah, so Veda was very interesting for me. I was working with some very experienced team leaders, right? These are set of folks who have demonstrated their capability especially in healthcare investment banking domain, I would say. They're very smart, come with a lot of experience, and I happen to be probably one of the only juniors there, right? So that was a win-win situation for me, and got some really good work mentors. As I think is the case with most investment banking roles, right? Early on, you're just looking to sharpen your technical skills. You're really trying to move the roughness out and become a bit more polished on all these aspects. At the same time, if you do get opportunities to network a little bit and develop a bit more broad-based understanding of various industries, sectors, etc., that's always a plus. So that turned out to be that was my objective at the end of the day of doing investment banking, to be honest, and that turned out fairly well because the teams were small and I could get quite a bit of exposure in that situation.
Small team, experienced team members, that helped you immensely.
So that was Veda. I eventually moved to Ernst & Young's investment banking team, and I practically wanted to get out of Chennai at some point, right? Not being from that geography, I wanted to move a little closer to home. So at that point, I joined Ernst & Young's investment banking team. They were setting up a consumer investment banking shop in Bangalore, and this was again a situation where so I had realized that I generally like working in smaller teams by that time, because I saw my role increases and my exposure increases. And here was a situation where EY had hired somebody to kind of help with consumer investment banking team in South, and so I joined that team. Turned out to be a great year. Got a lot of exposure. We were a lean team, because of which I had to step up and do much more than what my role probably meant on the paper, and that turned out to be a very, very valuable experience. I think the key takeaway there was just like I was kind of just sharpening what I learned at Veda, but I was getting much more exposure given the size of the team, and that's how that year spanned out.
I think your consumer experience, basically consumer sector experience, also explains your entry into L Catterton.
Yes, in a way. So L Catterton was recruiting at that time, and they obviously exclusively focus on consumer investing, right?
Right.
So with me, that made sense, to be honest to me. That just made logical sense. Anyway, my primary goal anyway was to get into investing at some point. So it made a logical sense that I should.
It was like connecting the dots.
Yeah, it was connecting the dots. The sector expertise kind of linked, and then it was also an investing role. So I thought let's pick it up. So that's how L spanned out for me, and I spent I think a couple of years over there, primarily looking at consumer and everything in consumer. Right?
So you, like, consumer was in and out to a greater extent for you.
To a greater extent, yes. It's we looked at everything, to be honest, at that point, and it was also a small team. They're focusing mostly. They had a good portfolio in retail assets, and this is the first time I actually got to engage with portfolio companies for the first time, right? Much more closely. Till now, I hadn't done that much ops involvement, but here is the first time you join. This happens with everyone, I assume, that you join a PE fund and you start to
the change in the roles.
The change in roles is, I think, something that is stark. So because of which you would generally find that your first year learning is maximum in a PE fund, especially when you're coming from investment banking. I think that's how L Catterton was.
Right. I think that makes sense entirely. I think the first one was very difficult. And then it's more like the path taking.
Then I think it slightly becomes easier. And the thing is that once you are into investing, and you spend time in it, you also start to develop your own philosophies, your own thesis on what do you really want to do. Right? Do you want to focus on certain sectors? Do you really want to focus on certain styles of investing? I think all of that eventually comes into play, and that ends up being more of a decision factor when you are moving on from there, right? That becomes like a thing that you're really most worried about.
So I think it's more like you become an individual with different set of opinions, experiences. I think from someone who just wants things to someone who has now opinions.
And now you're doing things not because you want to enter an industry. Now you're doing things because you
believe in it, you like
in something, right? So that becomes like a more of a main point for your judgment. I would say that's how it's found out.
Right. Sanket, you have done both IB and PE. So what are the major differences between PE and IB? I think many people want to enter PE, but then they think that they have to start with IB. Right? This is what you did.
Yes.
What is the major difference for someone who wants to maybe have an experience at both or like decide? So what would you say?
I would say, look, first probably talk about the similarity. I think the key aspect when you are young, the biggest similarity is that the basic technical skills required are broadly the same.
Yeah.
Right? You would need a good understanding of corporate finance. That's probably what you need in IB. That's what you need in private equity as well. You need some understanding of how valuations work. That's common in both the areas. I think generally the major area of difference will start with the fact that you are changing shoes, right? Now earlier you're thinking more from a seller's perspective. Now you're suddenly moving and thinking from a buyer's perspective.
Okay.
And when you make that shift, then a lot of things change in terms of how you read the same thing and think differently. That's how I would put it. Look, base technical skills are practically the same. It's not gonna change, but yes, some improvements will happen to it. Probably the rigor would be slightly better, but this is something that you will easily pick up in first few months while you're working at private equity, just sharpening what you already know. But the major difference really comes in this, the fact that now you have to change your governing philosophy and move your thinking point of view from being a seller to a buyer. So, and there's obviously the whole discipline of how to buy well, and that's basically investing. So
that is the thing.
So that's something that you start to learn. I think that's major, right? I would say apart from that, I would say not much, to be honest. That's practically it.
So I think investing is more involved with other people that we're actually making the money, the investments basically. Versus
so that's fair.
banking.
I think that's also a fair point, right? Like for example, your relationship with an operating company is not transactional, especially when it comes to. I'm only saying transactional because for a junior you would be involved in a certain transaction, right? And that your entire objective is to facilitate that transaction. I think when you go on the other side, of course, the purchase of the company is just the beginning of the journey.
Yeah, it's like you want the company to grow, which versus an investment banking, it's more like getting the deal closed or getting the IPO.
Yeah, your incentivization is much more geared towards the consummation of that transaction, right?
Right.
But when you move on the other side, it's just the beginning of the journey, and obviously you're thinking much more, right? You're taking more risk, especially when it comes to now it's your baby and it's with you. And you are responsible for what happens with it, and you're also supposed to help your the people you have got with you to work better and be able to deliver more outcomes. So it's also a responsibility shift, which is now the responsibility of the company in many ways is with you. So that's an important part, and obviously the success factor is not just purchase, right? It's much more. It's
basically long term.
It's a long term view. You have to be much more involved. But the good part is that these things are something that you don't necessarily need to know. When
for someone who's just starting.
For someone starting, right? You would learn these things, and you would have people around you who would be doing this for quite some time. So you would learn these things easily. That's they will make things easier for you on that aspect. But yeah, I think that's what I would say.
I think that makes sense. So there's this many people have reached out to me over LinkedIn that everybody feels that they want to enter into private equity or venture capital domain. So for someone, you broke into IB, like I think you made it clear at a time when many people wouldn't enter. So is it possible for someone, or are there opportunities like there where people can break into PE right after graduation, like say from BCom or undergraduate courses? What are your thoughts on this, or how is the market scenario like this?
So I think the good part is, to speak very fairly, over the last 6-7 years, at least to the extent that I have been in the industry, we have seen a lot of firms set up shop in the country. Right, so a lot of people have entered. And people have started up. Even the Indian investors who basically wanted to do private equity style of investing, they have also set up domestic funds. So yes, there are a lot of people out there with a GP, with a fund established. So that's a good thing. That's definitely something that has moved in the positive direction.
Basically, the opportunity
set has expanded, right? And most importantly, what I would say is that this is expanded across levels, right? So you have more seed stage funds, you also have more angel let's say venture capital funds, and you also have more PE funds and late stage PE funds. So all of that is there. I would suspect that even right now, there are funds who would believe that their hiring strategy is go for undergraduates.
Okay.
So there could be these funds. The only thing that I've seen is that this may not be the most common option for most of the funds. Right? So could it be possible to, as a graduate, get into a private equity fund? Maybe. There could be some GPs who would actively consider it, because every private equity fund actually has a very different mindset of what they are looking for. Right? It could be possible. I'm not denying it. The only thing is that probably your opportunity set is the widest post having certain experience which is desired by most of these places, right? Which they consider as good training base that they can further build on. So
Makes sense.
I would say, yeah, it is probably possible, but
But
maybe
it's again breaking the glass ceiling over here. It's
Yes.
not like something which is actually done to a greater extent.
it's not done to a greater extent. Maybe things will move differently in future, but I would say you may at this particular point of time be best advised if you decide to just develop the base through an investment banking experience or consulting experience or whatever experience may be,
Yeah.
because these are the places where most of the PE funds do go hiring.
Yeah, because it also gives you an industry experience, technical skill set that they might not want to like actually work on. Like you already
Yes,
have them and you're bringing something
yes.
more to
It
the
gives
table.
it gives them a base to work on. So
Yeah,
that's-
like you've had that corporate experience exposure and you're bringing some fineness also to the table
Yes.
when you're talking and dealing
Right.
with things.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What are your thoughts? So you've just steadfastly done like BCom and gone into corporate, which is like pretty strong. Like what are your thoughts on professional courses? Like there are a lot of professional courses in the domain. I think I've also done a lot of them, but like masters are there. So what are your thoughts on them and how significant and relevant they are, and in what ways they are significant or relevant?
Okay, so I would wonder how qualified I am to talk about it because actually I haven't done any. Right? let's be fair about that. Right? I think you can only speak to the extent you have done something. Right? I mean, speaking of experiences of being around folks who have done it or who have chosen not to do it, like me, I would say I think the approach to whether you want to, let's say, do a master's or not. So I didn't do it, but the approach to whether you want to do a master's or not is a slightly different. Especially when you're already working, right? Because then you become much more goal oriented. You're thinking, okay, why am I doing it, and what exactly is precisely the goal that I'm trying to, precisely what am I seeking out of it, right? What am I trying to achieve out of it? So that becomes a key parameter that you're going to evaluate whether masters adds value for you or not. So the key examples that you do see generally in such situations is that, let's say somebody wants a industry switch, right? Then you do see people saying that master sets up the base for being able to do that. And maybe I'm going to go there, pursue
Right.
such courses, which will, help me move in that direction.
Right.
I've also seen folks thinking about a master's, especially in a different geography, so that they can do a geography switch. So that is
Right.
also a preferred mode. Sometimes it's also that you feel that you can do better at your job by doing a master's, so that can also happen. Or you can feel that things are going well for you where you are, and you have continuity, and you think that the course of progression is natural. In that case, you may not want to do a master's. So all routes exist.
Right. I think so with masters, if I can sum it up, it's more like if you want jobs, role switch, geography switch, or maybe more progression or a more
Yeah.
steeper growth curve in where you are.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
For masters, I think we can do it like that. Yeah, absolutely. Makes sense. So you've actually had an intensive, quite number of years in your corporate domain. So what you would say is the best part about the job that you like, and also at the same time the one thing that you think, okay, yeah, if this would not have been there, it would have been better off.
Oh yeah. I think the best part of being an investor obviously is that you get to see things critically, right? And I would say you get to see things critically, and you get to see them with a peer circle, which also it's honestly a privilege to work with such peer circle, right? These are some of the smartest people in the country, looking at the same thing that everybody else is looking, but sometimes having completely different point of view.
Lenses very different.
Yeah, lenses vary, and it's come with a lot of experience. You're really working with very sharp and smart people, right? Who are helping you develop your own perspective on things. So I would say the best part of investing for me has been that just being surrounded by these people, and being involved in situations where we are taking view on things which is probably at that particular point of time a bit unpopular, right? And that gives you a bit confidence, especially when those things play out.
Yes.
Especially when those things, so that gives you a lot of confidence, right? And that makes you feel that you have started to understand a bit better of how the world works when such things play out. I think probably what you don't like, which happens in everybody who's investing, is disappointments, especially let's say for example an investment not going right, which is obviously it's a disappointing position to be in, right?
Right. It's not a happy, like,
It's-
it's like you
yeah,
put
it's
in
not a
so
happy
much of
mood.
efforts and thought
Yeah,
into
it's
it,
not a
and
happy
it doesn't
mood,
work out.
right? So, which is typical, which can happen. Yeah, there will be failures, obviously, and there will be bad investments that will happen. So yeah, that's probably something you won't enjoy. It'll keep changing.
It's a part of the game.
It's part of the game. It's gonna keep changing, and you're gonna feel the highs and lows as an hour tech progresses.
I think in terms of the people, I think I totally agree. Like, even when I was in JP Morgan, like, the set of people you're around is very like, they're very driven.
Yes.
That drive is something, when you see it on an everyday basis, also keeps you going.
Yeah.
It's
that's
an
true.
ecosystem which is very driven.
Yes.
That is all. I think coming to the people, how do you would put it out, like, how relevant were people in your life or your peer set in your life has been in terms of shaping your experiences or your decision making? If you started from college, or how do you think that has actually shaped up onto what you've taken up now?
I would say very relevant. Like, I think, firstly, it doesn't just go with having experienced mentors, right? It's also with the friend, with
Peer set.
direct friends that you have and what they are thinking, right? So I was lucky that when I wanted to that partially I would say my decision to actually pursue investing and finance, I was actually introduced by a friend, right? I was introduced by a friend to this whole domain, and that's how it's scaled up. So interestingly enough, I was taught financial modeling by a friend in college, right, who already knew it for some reason, and that's how first I was introduced to a lot of these books that I've read over time: Margin of Safety, Security Analysis, Grant Dodd.
You read all of these in college?
Some of these in college. I continued them during my investment banking study. I still read, but yeah, some of these books, I think just getting introduced to them is probably the most important part, and I think all of this was done by a good friend circle, I would say, at that particular point of time. So that has been one, and the second thing that has actually played out well for me at least has been that having mentors who are at least like 6-7 years older to you. I've started to realize that I started to realize early that probably seeking the ultimate counseling from just somebody who is like 1 year or 2 years senior to you. The reality is, in a broader scheme of things, they are practically in the same boat as you. Right? They're just 1 year ahead, but they're just taking the boat of you. But when you start having mentors who are like much more senior, I think that's where you get to have the long view on things. And that worked out. I happened to. That was in Veda that I just randomly got introduced to somebody who had set up one of the first private equity funds in the country, right, at that particular point of time, and I was helping him divest his own personal investments at that time. So it is just a bunch of these introductions which fructified into good relationships, and later on people I could just go
back and take your advice. I think this is very relevant, like having someone who's a mentor to you, and few years down the line already a senior, you see things that you're not seeing right now.
Yes.
And they help you structure your thoughts, versus when it comes to peers, they are very relevant if you want to continue with what you're doing every day, because you're spending a lot of your free time with them.
That's right.
And how we spend our free time is also extremely important, as much as
utility of time. That's right.
Like, because that kind of comes to your time when you're working as well after a point.
Yeah, that's true.
Absolutely. So what is the main advice that you would say if someone who's look in the college and want to enter into the investment banking domain, like right now, with the current landscape, the opportunities that are there? So a student who's in third year of college, what would be your advice if somebody wants to enter the investment banking domain? How can they?
These folks do reach out to us, right, quite a bit. A lot of these students who are in third year, you do get your LinkedIn filled with these requests. I think most of them, to be honest, and I look back and think about myself, are very well presented. I do see that they have a lot of drive, and they have done a decent amount of research on what they want and what are they looking for. I think few things that at least I have noticed, and honestly still right now the bunch of people I end up interacting with, they're way better than what I was back then, right? I think few things I do see that somewhere, the content part, because investment banking, just finance in general, just happens to be a domain where there is quite a bit of technical content that's already there.
Okay.
Right. It's not go back to the fundamentals and start from scratch more field of work anyway. So you do see that folks for some reason don't read much, right?
Okay.
So you can test their understanding of I mean, this is just from my experiences of corporate finance, and you see that there are still weaknesses over there, right? The good part, however, is that if you're interacting with, let's say, we did become honors, right? We do get fair amount of time outside of our curriculum to be able to invest behind these things.
Right.
So I would say just spending a lot of time in trying to learn these things early on, because firstly you would not get any other better time once you have started working, because that's not going to happen.
Right.
So should spend good amount of time on developing the technical know-how early on, especially of things that you really want to do, right? And the best part is all the content is out there.
Right. Absolutely. I think free content, and so not
Free
even just
content.
content.
That's right.
Good free content is right out there.
Yes, that's a beauty.
So I think for a domain like investment banking, being technically sound is extremely important.
Yes, I would say technically sound is first part. Second, start having a viewpoint,
Okay.
right? And don't have it for the sake of it.
Okay.
See how you can spend time on nourishing your mental model, right? And that generally happens with deep reading. So there is one content which is just like, let's say for example, you are in college, you just decided that okay, free content. Aswat Damodaran puts out every single lecture he makes on YouTube, right? And that's like the gold mine. Honestly, that's like the gold mine of technical capability. That if you want to learn anything corporate finance valuation, just go and attend those.
He's the father of valuation.
Just go attend those lectures.
Yeah.
It's all free. He just puts it out there, right? So you could do that. But I think also spending time in just once you have learned these technicals, like how do you apply? And so some of the books that you mentioned that I mentioned that I was reading were just from more of the angle that
of application.
Application and just like how do I start thinking?
पहले आप theory पढ़ लो, उसका application समझ लो.
Yeah.
क्या आप real life में actually application
करोगे and आपके थोड़े से viewpoints बनेंगे, right? You'll start realizing how to, because there's otherwise finance has so much noise. Just open the news and you'll see like tons of news flowing. You don't know what should you read, like what should you know.
Right.
So these things actually help you focus on things you should care about and things you should probably not
Right
care about.
information.
Right information.
Right. I think makes sense. I think we'll keep the final question and so if you look back at your younger self and someone who's starting college,
Yeah.
3 years of college, and how would you just say this see, I think college is a very important part of our life.
Right.
It's just not career, it's also about the life relations and
Yes.
everything. Learnings and all, it should be
Fair.
holistic.
Fair.
So, keeping all of these perceptions in place, what would you just say? Okay, this is the younger Sanket and ye sab kar lo, like go out all there. So, what would your recommendation be?
Yeah, I fully agree. You should be an all-rounder, especially in college, right? Because these are some of the most valuable years you'll never get again. I would say probably I had a lot of action bias at that time. I just felt that I should be very active, and what I should do is I invest all my time, all my free time behind just participating in different events and participating in different activities and participating in all of that. Now that's very important, don't get me wrong. Right? But I kind of devoted 100% of my time on that.
Okay.
Right? So I somehow feel that just getting a fine balance between how you devote your time towards activities, how you devote your time towards like plain and simple reading, how you devote your time towards reaching out to more people outside and just trying to get a mental circle together, how you devote your time towards, let's say, just having fun with friends. I think there's a basic time allocation, I would say.
Time management, थोड़ा सा planning कर लो.
थोड़ा planning and थोड़ा time management आपको करना पड़ेगा, because in reality, look, you'll need everything, all of these things.
Right.
So somewhere I feel I probably would have done better if I would have just spent more time on, let's say, mentoring and finding good mentors and finding more time for reading early on, rather than just having a very strong activity bias.
Okay. I think now it has to be a balance, because there are people who just would, have right mentors and just would plan.
Yeah.
Versus people who would not do any action.
So action is important, right?
Action is extremely important, but having a directed action
with some content in your head, that why are you doing it?
I think let's put it this way, directed action. And
Yeah.
make the most of 3 years in terms of the people, the network, the opportunities and everything.
Correct.
Like if you're actually getting a college ecosystem,
That's
which
true.
is
That's
actually
true. Yeah, I think obviously it all starts with the fact that you should get a good college ecosystem, and thankfully I think we were lucky to have
Yeah,
a
agreed. Absolutely.
good college ecosystem. But even if you don't, there are still things to do out there.
Right. Toastmasters is there. There are many
Yes.
organizations and startups
Yes.
that have come up with community networks and all of
Yes. So that I think that way the whole ecosystem at undergrad level has developed quite a bit.
that. Absolutely. I think this has been quite an interesting conversation and an interesting journey. Thank you so much, Sanket. I think
Thanks.
extremely happy that you've shared your share of struggles in a corporate domain and how you've actually come this far. Extremely interesting
thanks
and
to you.
motivating.
You're doing some good social service. I would say.
Okay, thank you.